You are listening to Information and Inspiration with Jen Julius, helping you take control of your own life by finding clarity, improving your communication, and building confidence to achieve your goals. For more information about me and my guest, you can go to jenjulius.com and check out the On the Radio tab. Today, I have one of my favorite people, Kate Pintor, on the show, and we will be discussing confident vulnerability. So, Kate, can you go ahead and tell us what you do, where you came from, and why you're so awesome? Oh, my word. We're going to talk about Oh, my word a lot today, too.
Oh, my word, Jen. Oh, my word. Good morning. So I am a business relationship coach. And the way that I work is I help small business owners and entrepreneurs stay connected to the people they're serving, the people that they're serving with, and kind of shedding light on the words that they're using to kind of get their message out into the world. And I love words. Did you know that?
I do know that.
I love words. I love all of them. Like every single word. I love it.
Communication's huge.
Communication is so huge. And finding that shared meaning so we can really make a difference. That's what I'm passionate about.
Beautiful.
And I think my magic has to do with the resilience and my ability to help people raise their emotional intelligence, which is so key in creating success and sustaining at that pace that it takes to build it. And so I love to hold space for that and just be with people kind of in the muck of that until they're really finding themselves kind of on top of the world consistently, no matter what's kind of occurring in their business.
I'm excited for you to share some concepts around this because I think communication is one of the biggest triggering points of any relationship we're ever in, right? Whether it's friendship, intimate relationship, business relationship, whatever. We know it's one of the biggest challenges in marriages. We know, and potentially one of the biggest contributors to divorce.
Absolutely.
And it can also be one of the, words can cut deeper than anything, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, like I said, why you're so awesome? What's a little bit of your story?
Why I am
What
so
brought you
awesome.
out to Sonoma County to come live in Magic Land with Jen Julius?
I know. Everything's magic with Jen Julius.
Shucks.
So I actually was born and raised in Maine. And so I'm a small...
That is not California.
It is not. It took like 4.5 days to get here by pickup truck and with a 5x8 trailer. Oh my God. Which back then, 20 years ago, you could get for about $120, which is amazing. For those of you that are looking to drive across the country.
Oh, wow.
Just letting you know, it used to be cheaper.
Way cheaper.
And so I was born and raised there. My parents have a restaurant called Chute's Family Restaurant. And so we were raised kind of in hospitality mode and really aware all the time of kind of what was happening at a fast pace and really, in a small town, you kind of just know everybody. And what I love about Sebastopol, what I love about Sonoma County is it feels a little bit like that here. I spent some time in LA working in marketing, but up here it's like, this feels small town again. And so, I love being here. Came out here for college and stayed.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And do you have any story that you want to share about? We're alluding to this big concept around words, right? And I'll tell the listeners. Should I tell the listeners as how much I make fun of you?
Right.
But I don't really make fun of her. I admire her. So those of you that have listened to my show a lot or follow me know that I guess I brand myself as being really real and super raw, right? And I also come from a small town, but I was raised in, let's just say, an environment that was super real and raw. That's why I teach a class called Real, Raw, and Resilient, right? And one of my growing edges is to not use potty mouth words so much because I do a lot. And so little Miss Kate is wonderful about not doing things such as that. And she says, oh my word, a lot. And it's rubbed off on me. And I try to say, oh my word, instead of saying other words that, have 4 letters and start with F and things like that. And it doesn't always work for me very well because I end up just saying all of it together, but I'm trying. And people are surprised to hear me say, oh my word, but I try really hard.
I think you're doing a great job.
And it's real funny.
We think it's funny.
Yeah, we think it's funny.
We think it's hilarious.
People that hear me think it's funny. So if you hear me saying, oh my word, more, it came from this lovely woman in front of me. She's a really good influence. And I just worry sometimes that I'm not that good of an influence on her. But you're here on Cows Radio, so obviously something's going well.
Something's going well.
So with that said, oh my word, words. so much of the show actually is based kind of on some of your personal experience today, because as I believe and we believe together, so much of our story does have to do with how we end up being able to be of service in the world. And a lot of people that have listened to my show before know a little bit about my story, how it connects to the type of coaching I do now. I know that the same is true for you. And I'm curious if you want to share some of your experience so people kind of understand the foundational component of some of the concepts and content that we're going to share today.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for reminding of that, because sometimes it's a lot easier to just skip over our story because that would be vulnerable, which is kind of what we're talking about today.
Weird.
So when you actually asked me, to join you today, I was thinking, what did I want to say? And I'm like, I know what I want to talk about, but then I felt like, what do I not want to talk about? Because that would be vulnerable. And that's what I wanted to bring, was like, what is it about me, or my story that I don't want to talk about. So this is what I've kind of landed with today, is I'm just going to show up, because that's what this is.
Perfect.
And so I'll tell you about words. It's so funny. As a kid, I had a hard time speaking my words. I felt when I looked around at everyone else, they could say exactly what they wanted to say. And I was processing so much, and I mumbled, and I perceived myself as not articulate at all. And actually, for most of up until my mid-20s, I would have said, I am not as articulate as those around me. And, I remember when I was 10 years old and I was writing a book, and when
I was 10 writing my first book.
And this is, and I went to the university with my aunt to take a college course from Robert McCloskey, who's a great children's author, wrote Blueberries for Sal, which is one of my favorites. And he spoke to me, and something in that moment, I had no words. Like, I was trying to talk, but I couldn't actually put the words together. And it just sort of resonated with me. But that's like the first time I remember would have been a great opportunity, but fear, whatever, I just held on to them. I couldn't even get them out in order. And as a kid, moving on into adulthood, I can think of a few other, situations where that happened, where I had something to say, but I couldn't get it out for whatever reason. Moving into my 20s, when I was 28, I was diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome after an ankle sprain. And what it does is it's like a neurological disease, and basically my ankle wasn't healing. It started to look like a cadaver leg. Wow. And it was so painful, like a 9, on the scale. And I just had a baby, as you know, 3 months ago. So I'm like, yes, it was worse than that. Yeah. It was horrifying. And then it spread to all the limbs of my body. It went into my face. And I learned over a decade of fighting that, how to, what I communicated, how I advocated for myself, that I was the only one that had the words for what needed to happen in order for me to stay healthy, to be the mom I wanted to be the wife, all of those things. I had to find my words. And even to the point of being in the hospital, my husband has a picture where he took a Sharpie and wrote on my leg, "Do not touch." And on the other leg, he wrote "ditto." And I use that picture as a reminder of how important it is for people to find their voice. And also, the positivity that comes from that. I had a real mindset shift when I realized the words I was speaking out into the universe, and the words that I was kind of dwelling with and wrestling with in my mind, my thought patterns, all of that really mattered, and it had an impact on my health. And so I began in 2010 to kind of embark on a transformational journey. And I got well. I mean, I'm in remission. I had infusions. It opened up all these possibilities. And I got well, and it doesn't seem like people get well from this. But I did. And I found my voice, and I pushed through to the point of it had to be life or death that these things be said. And it worked,
I get really emotional about this because I'm so attached to you, and it's I know the entirety of the story, and I appreciate the summary for our show today. But I think that what I want to point out is that when you're talking about this, like, the amount of pain that you were in was to the point, like, if someone touched you, it was like,
right. It might take me hours or days to recover.
And so I want to emphasize that, like, we're not talking about like, oh, it hurts a little bit. It's like, we're talking about such a severe it's a nerve disorder, nerve disorder, that if someone, like you said, the Sharpie on your leg, like do not touch, because it could take hours or days to recover from a simple touch. And to conceptualize that for people, I mean, think about where you're sitting right now and what you're sitting on, or if you're driving. Think about if you're driving and your arm slipped off and your elbow hit the glove box in the middle. That could send someone with what she's talking about into a downfall for who knows how long, right? So this is what we're trying to conceptualize. And the only way, I appreciate you articulating how the only way to protect yourself in a way was by being able to communicate your needs and your desires clearly.
Absolutely.
Because you had to be able to say, do not touch me here. Do not do this. Like, this is critical. So it's interesting how everything comes together, though, isn't it?
It is. It is.
So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And yes, and for moving to California. So I can have you now.
And staying.
And I want, as we were discussing the topic we wanted to share today, because I'm passionate about what's your area of expertise? What do you want to share? How can we support people in these interviews? We want to really talk about this concept around confident vulnerability. It's something that we both coach on, but in different regards and with different populations. And I kind of wanted to just explore where you wanted to start off. Do you talking about confident vulnerability, talking about business relationship work? Where do you feel like you want to start off today?
I actually brought a quote.
Perfect.
And I wanted to read. Brene Brown is
love her.
The teacher of the hour of this concept. She didn't create them, but she's so excellent at articulating them. And I love seeing men and women rallying kind of around these books and her message right now, and really examining, am I connected? You know, am I connected? Am I connected to you? Am I connected to us?
Yes.
And so here's the quote. This is from Daring Greatly. Vulnerability is not weakness, and the uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure we face every day are not optional. Our only choice is a question of engagement. Our willingness to own and engage with our vulnerability determines the depth of our courage and the clarity of our purpose. The level to which we protect ourselves from being vulnerable is a measure of our fear and disconnection. That pretty much sums up my role as a business relationship coach.
Yeah. Well, so for people that aren't familiar with Brene Brown, you can Google her, Brene Brown, and you can watch her TED Talk on vulnerability. It has over 4 million views, I believe, and it's kind of what I think put her on the map modern day too. After I saw some of her other videos, she always refers back to it. And she has a few TED Talks. She was also just featured on Oprah's talk series about trust. All brilliant messages, but she really is good at bringing things in a practical light as well. So it's a great resource. And she really talks about how vulnerability is the gateway to creativity and connection.
Absolutely.
Right? And we know that, especially as in our roles as coaches, that it's often our vulnerability of sharing some of our story that allows people to connect to us and feel safe and
completely
help them feel safe to share as well. So with confident vulnerability, what does that even mean? How do we shift over into that space of being safe, being okay to share?
It's so interesting. I was talking with another coach locally the other day, and we had just attended a networking meeting. And I look in there as people are announcing themselves, and so eloquently. So, you know, they're so great at packaging what they do. Yes. And I learn a lot from being around them. But as I'm there and what I'm listening to is how connected are they to what they're saying, what's happening in the room. It's just a great way to picture that. So if you're out there, if you're a business owner, think about that, how you feel the moment you're sharing your message. And, you know, what's your connection, you know, in that moment. This is just a great starting point. And how many of us, when we're in those meetings, are actually disconnecting from ourselves? Perhaps because we want to look good. We want to say it right. We want to kind of be copying what everyone else is doing. There's so many reasons. It's a great laboratory for looking at, are you confidently vulnerable? Like, are you in there kind of, you know, hustling and memorizing your words? Where are you with that? Or are you connecting to the people around you? Now, the thing is with the confident component, that does not mean that people need to go and share their story all the time. Because we're not talking about victimhood. We're not talking about from that place of I'm the victim or that place of I'm the hero, right?
We can talk about this for a long time. Yeah. Yes, go.
We're not. that's not what vulnerability is. Vulnerability is holding that space where I own my story, and I may tell you if it serves.
Yes.
But I don't have to tell you. I don't, if it serves, and it's almost like asking the universe, like, is this helpful?
Yeah.
And it's actually a place of really owning all of your stuff, owning where you've come from, but listening to the extent where you are such a generous listener, that you are so in tune with who you're communicating with and what's happening in the room, that you can deliver the words in that moment that do serve. And it's automatic. You can learn how to do this in an automatic way, and you can still give your pitch. It just has a whole different vibe.
And what's coming up for me as you're talking about this is maybe the pessimistic side of me of, and potentially too different. And too different meaning, I feel like it would be so unnatural for so many people in the business realm to really stop and see, how am I connecting to everyone's energy in the room, right?
Right.
Which is, something that we talk about a lot.
Yes.
It's definitely something I talk about, because part of the biggest thing I coach on is the concept of energy management, really, when it comes down to it. Not energy like, being able to run and eat, but like how you show up, that vibe that people get. That's what we're talking about a little bit. And you're talking about it from the context of what you're sharing, what you're communicating.
Right.
How are you allowing that to connect to the people that you're sharing it with? And how are you connecting with the people that you're in front of?
Right.
At any given time, whether it is in a business meeting, whether it is your staff or your management team or whatever, right?
One of the ways that I coach in this arena of confidence is with Strengthsfinder. And so I have to tell you a little bit. I'm sure if anyone is out there, if you have taken it, because I love this stuff, not because I'm labeling you. I just want to tell you that right now. You're listening to me.
But
These are not labels.
It's a great
These
tool.
are not labels, but they're great tools. The goal of Strengthsfinder, which is based on a 40-year study of human strengths with Gallup, is that they wanted to start a global conversation about what's right with people. Don't you like that?
Yeah, I do. I do like that.
And that's the whole reason why I love it. Because I'm looking around going, what's right with you?
Yeah.
What's right with you? Send me your top 5 talents.
I know. When she'd made me do my Strengthsfinder, she's like, I've been waiting for you.
Yeah. And had a little strength envy.
Oh, gosh.
But it seems like the world's ready for this conversation. And so if I just took that one concept of like, what's right with everybody around me when I went into the networking meeting, how would that change things?
Yeah. And we're not talking about avoidance.
No.
We're not talking about ignorance, like trying to just avoid and not see what's in front of you, but we are talking about what are you going to choose to look at most? And how are you going to choose to connect? So choice is another big concept that you and I share in common around just our personal philosophies. What are we going to choose to focus on, and how are we going to choose to connect? And keeping in mind, I mean, also, let's keep it real. You're never going to like everybody that you're around. I mean, some people might, but I'm not one of them. And I think that but also knowing that, check it out, everybody has a story, period. Doesn't mean we have to be like them and connect to them and all this stuff. But sometimes just the understanding and accepting that as a truth, that everyone has a story. And oftentimes, Marianne Williamson just did a great talk about this on Oprah's platform as well, about oftentimes the things that kind of make people look like jerk faces, right? Is often them acting from their wounds, and just remembering that often that the concept hurt people. And oftentimes when we're hurt, when we have stuff that maybe we haven't been able to fully look at or deal with yet, we might act out. And I think having some forgiveness and compassion for people and allowing that, while also not necessarily allowing it in your personal space, because we're allowed to set boundaries, can be really healing for us as well as people. Just knowing that, hey, not everything everybody does is about me.
Right.
Sometimes it's their own stuff.
Exactly. Well, and leaning in to that connection if that's what's going on, and you're like, somebody breaks it or you break it. And I was, thinking today, like, there's basically 4 ways that people sabotage, that connection. And so like the first one might be the need to be right. This is such a powerful urge. And when we're in relationship, we may not even know exactly how that's manifesting, but when you need to have the last word, it's really important for you to be heard and guilty. Like, I am guilty of this as someone who couldn't get my words out. I was like, a lot of times I wanted my words out. I wanted to say what I wanted to say because I wanted to be right, or I knew I was right. Like, I am right. You know, your blood pressure goes up, and
it's totally like, me right now. Oh my God, that's so one of my big ones.
Right. I'm right. They shouldn't be doing that. And, you know, we're judging or we're whatever. So that need to be right can totally sever it. Also the need to control. So this might show up in codependent relationships. It might show up in a workplace where, you know, you may be great at the details, but when you see people not doing the job the right way, or, you know, people aren't meeting the deadlines that you had, and your communication becomes manipulative because you're trying to control it. You're trying to influence and make a result happen. So that in that moment, you disconnect from the heart of the other person, and you forget the human that's on the other side, because you really, you know, you're trying to fill that gap yourself. There's also the need to look good. And that would be a perfect example, would be a networking meeting, where people want to look good. They want referrals. They want to appear together and you know, showered, and they want to smell good. They want
to present well.
They want to present well, and it's important to present well. It's not that any of these qualities are bad, because they're not. They just are. Right? Yeah. It's like it's not bad to look good. I want to look good.
Yeah.
I usually do. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right. I'm just saying. Yeah. Oh my word.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying. So, but it's that place. But in relationship, can you think of an example of where might that show up, like the need to look good, that would cause breakdown?
Well, the other two are the ones I relate to the most, because they show up for me the most.
Okay.
I think the look good one is definitely applicable for me, but I feel like the other two are way more, because I literally, like, you could ask over half of my close friends, like, I've flat out told them, be careful arguing with me, because I don't argue unless I know I'm right.
There you go.
And it is true, because I don't, so that's where it connects to looking good, because for me, I won't argue about something unless I'm 100% sure I'm right, because I don't want to risk being wrong, which makes me look bad.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And then with that, then, I mean, in control, I mean, a lot of people know part of my background, struggling with addiction and an eating disorder, which is all about control typically, you know, is how can I control what goes in and out of my body? How can I control my, and fill these voids inside of me that I'm trying to deal with and avoid and push away, and also control how I feel all the time, right?
Right. A big complaint, I guess, or concern that I get from freelancers and entrepreneurs, that fear of when they fail, like what happens when I fail, like what happens, like if I missed a communication, what happens if I miss a deadline, or when I think I'm going to miss a deadline, and then I pull my connection back, right? Like I'm going to break that connection, because my fear of failure is so strong, and that's huge. Also, I read a statistic online. You know what they say about statistics. So, but anyway, it's like 70% of executives are afraid of being found out that they don't belong in the chair that they're in.
Oh my word! So that is so this concept of like the fraud.
Yeah.
Right.
They think they're going to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's huge. I feel like I know that's huge in our profession for
huge.
Sure. I'm not surprised that it's also in executive roles. I work with a lot of CEOs, and so I think I've seen that a lot. But I think also people don't give themselves enough credit.
I know, they don't give themselves enough
I was just
credit.
speaking with someone yesterday, actually. I said, check it out. You've been doing this kind of work longer than I've been alive. I think you know, and I think you've got some skills that we need to get you to own, right?
Yeah.
Because so much has to do with, when we're talking about confidence, I always bring in the energy piece. It's not always what we say, and I'm not just talking about nonverbal communication and the nonverbal cues of body language and tone and whatever. I'm also talking about the energy behind a statement. Right? So confidence has so much to do with the energy that's presented behind a statement. Because you can also think about, people can be extremely confident and flat out lie to you, but it'll throw you off because the energy behind it was so confident, right? So talking about like this concept of energy too, and how we're presenting things has so much more to do with how they're received than I think people realize, right?
If they can bring their awareness to that,
they
will. It's like your body is such a great tool for you. If you can stay connected with your body while you're communicating, you'll learn this so fast.
Yes.
But if you are disconnected from your own body, you're lost.
Well, and unfortunately, culturally, I think we've been pushed to disconnect a little bit.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that getting back into our bodies and really feeling everything that's going on in it is not always fun. It can be scary, especially because we've been taught to pathologize and symptomize.
Right.
New word, everything. Oh, my belly hurts a little bit. Yeah, my belly hurt this morning too because I was going to be live on a radio show. Duh. I don't need to see if, oh my gosh, my belly hurts. Maybe I'm sick. Maybe I need to take some medicine. Da da da. Or, oh no, this is part of my natural process. Weird. Right? Not saying, of course, the disclaimer, if you feel sick, you should probably get da da da. Like that. Before we move on, I want to,
Sure.
There was a fourth one. 4 ways people sabotage. Need to
Yes.
control, right? Need to be right.
This
Need to
is a good
control.
one.
Need to look good.
You ready?
Yes.
The need to be comfortable.
Oh yeah. Word. Okay.
Comfortable. This is when we pull back to safety. This is actually, it's such a loud voice in people's heads because it's the doubt that comes in that makes us pull back. It's, I'm not sure if this is going to happen, so I don't want to go on the radio show just in case, whatever. Like I need, and it's so like partly true. So you kind of agree with it when that voice comes up and says, come back home, or don't take that leap. Don't take that next risk. Don't show all your cards. I hear that a lot in business where women especially, well, men too, but just women recently, I've been talking to a lot of women where they're feeling like, I can't show this other side of me because these people think vulnerability is weakness. And I've read Brene Brown and I know that it's not. Mm-hmm. But if I bring that here and if I say, hey, I got 2 hours of sleep last night because my baby was up all night. True story.
That's real. Real talk right now.
It was real. If I bring that in or acknowledge anything like that in a work setting, it's like it's not about the work anymore. It's too personal. Where is that place of being me and in this job? And if I'm constantly having to mask and compartmentalize my life to hold that job, I'm going to have some issues.
Yes.
And so it may not be comfortable to share. So that's, where I pull that back. Or you see a lot of people it's amazing with the need to be comfortable could be how I keep sabotaging myself from achieving my goal. Like a lot of people set goals in January. My phone rang off the hook. I'm sure yours did too. It's like they want to do it now. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
But what happens and why we don't keep those resolutions and why we're not implementing is because it's like we maybe say if you were on a vertical climb towards a goal, that gravity is going to come and pull you down. Just life happens. And when life happens, we want to come back to safety. We want to simplify. Hierarchy of needs, comes into play. And it's not bad. This is how we're made. Our brains are doing this on purpose. This is like neuroscience. But it's something to be aware of. How am I disconnecting by needing to be comfortable? Maybe you get triggered. Maybe, something else and you got to come back to safety. Maybe I don't want to leap and trust in this and like step forward in relationship with this person because, it feels unsafe. And so I may make up a story. That's what we do in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. We make up a story, we blame, or we retreat, or we keep things really casual. And in the meantime, what that does as we're disconnecting in that way, we're disconnecting from ourselves and these deep longings that we maybe aren't talking about and aren't kind of grounding into. We just sort of put those on the side when we have that need to be comfortable sabotaging us.
Yeah. I think what I'm really hearing that I want to, of course, I always come in with the disclaimers. What Kate and I are not talking about is making excuses.
Correct.
Right? We're talking about like being honest about your truth and your experience in a way. Like if you went to work and you got 2 hours of sleep because the baby was up all night, like not having so much fear around just simply sharing. Like when someone asks, how are you? Like, oh, I'm a little tired today, actually. But not doing it in such a way where you're like, I'm so tired. Can everybody else do my work today for me?
Exactly.
Like that's not what we're talking about.
That would not be confident vulnerability.
Right. That'd be a little.
That's something else.
Yeah, that'd be something else. I was saying a little manipulative. I don't know. So thank you. So I think that these you've talked to me and taught me a lot about those concepts before, about the need to be right, the need to control, the need to look good, the need to be comfortable. It makes me then in I guess potential contrast think of Tony Robbins talking a lot about our core human needs or drives of to feel safe, to feel loved, and to belong. Is that right?
Yes.
And so I'd love for, people that are listening, you're obviously listening for tools, to write down the concepts that she said about 4 ways people sabotage: needing to be right, to control, to look good, to feel comfortable. And then also when often everything we're doing is meeting and trying an attempt, a subconscious attempt or conscious attempt to meet a need, which could be to be loved, to feel safe, or to belong. So just start raising your awareness around, are you choosing behaviors consciously or subconsciously to try and address one of these needs, or also potentially sabotaging other circumstances? Something that they can start thinking about as they move along. Yeah.
Excellent.
We've talked about 4 ways people sabotage. We talked about some of the core human needs and drives. So what else? How do people step into this concept of confident vulnerability? And how do you, if you want to share about, how do you utilize this in the business sector?
What I would love to talk about with this is the confident component. So let's go back to the Strengthsfinder, because this is so fun.
So fun.
This is so fun.
For people like us.
It is. It is. Actually, I
like the combination. My coach works with Strengthsfinder and astrology, which is what I kind of do too. I don't know Strengthsfinder. I've sent people to you for that. But when we look at both, it's like kind of the esoteric components of our behaviors and who we are. And then it's
that's a whole other layer.
Yeah, totally.
It's a whole other layer.
Totally.
Okay, so the Strengthsfinder assessment, it takes about 30 minutes. For those of you at home that are wondering, Gallup has a website that you can check out, and it's gallupstrengthcenter.com. And what they have divided things into is 34 talent themes. So there's 34. Everybody has all of them. They're just in a certain order at the end of the assessment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so my top 5 are connectedness, achiever, strategic, activator, and relator. Those are my top 5, which means the way I move and breathe and think in the world is usually coming from that direction. And so there are 4 different categories that they organize these into. So there's executing themes, influencing themes, relationship themes, and strategic thinking. And as a mother of 3 children plus 2 stepchildren, I think almost all of them have had to take it. It's such a great tool with teenagers as well as a parent. This is a phenomenal tool for parenting. And because we need to see our kids as they are and kind of separate from trying to, when they hit puberty, they don't want to be who we want them to be, right? They need to be who they are. And so we need to get curious and develop a curiosity around our children and our spouses and our partners and our work environment. We need that curiosity. So executing is obviously a very, that's like achiever, arranger, belief, consistency, deliberative. These kinds of talents are really helpful in leading. Influencing would be, it's like maybe that's influencing people, but it's people who are basically like in a team setting, they're able to sell the team's ideas inside and outside the organization. So when you need someone to take charge, speak up, make sure your group is heard, you would want somebody who has high influence themes. Relationship, I have to tell you for a moment, my 17-year-old daughter, I think possibly 4 out of her 5 are all relationship, or all 5 are relationship. She's phenomenal. Wow. She's amazing. People like her quickly. They trust her quickly. She's going to graduate high school this year from Windsor High, and she has this innate quality that helps people to believe and trust her right away.
Wow.
So in her life, that's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Really, really huge. And actually the Naviance program that the schools have actually has a version of Strengthsfinder called Explore. So she was able to take it for free at school.
Cool.
Which is really cool. So think about that in terms of relationship. And then strategic thinking would be analytical, input, intellection, strategic. And so Jen, you have a very wide range in all of the 4 of these categories. So you are actually able to support somebody very evenly, which is an excellent thing as a coach. Like if you were all in one, if you were all strategic thinking, you would be more narrow or more limited, in the way that maybe you would think about supporting someone. It would be different for you in finding resources. So I just thought you're very balanced. Is what yours showed me.
Wow. Thank you.
So, which means you've done some personal work.
Thanks.
So when you get your top 5, here's what I do with businesses. We want to look at what is in the balcony. Like which of these strengths are like going phenomenal. Like it's really, that's where you feel most alive. Like for me, so achiever means I have a to-do list every single day. And what makes me happiest is crossing things off that list.
Right.
So at work, I might put things on that list that really don't matter. I just like to cross them off. I just want to feel like I accomplished something, in that day. So that's what achiever means to me. It also, what I learned was in its worst space, like I would call that the basement. That's what we talk about, balcony and basement. So this is where it's doesn't serve as well, is that like those years I was sick, I had such a hard time being present. I had a really difficult time being still because I wanted to do. And I had to learn, you had to take on some affirmations of, you are not what you do. I am enough. I just had to say that over and over.
Yeah.
I am enough. I am worthy of love and belonging, even if I can't do. And I am, just like all of those, just kind of, staying with that. And every day I sort of had to tune into that, because the basement of achiever is I want to take action. And I can't. If your life can't, or you get cancer. I have one client that had cancer. She is not equipped right now physically on a day-to-day basis. She doesn't know what her resource is, but she has achiever. So she is really struggling. How do I keep leading my business when I'm feeling, so crappy about myself, in that space? And so this is a way I would use strengths, in that with her. And then, so that's, balcony, basement, really, really important. I have one client who had very low empathy. So as their, their business is growing, or they have a lot of goals and visions, if they don't have empathy, what happens in that case? Well, people feel left behind that you're working with. Yeah. Or you forget the human. You're breaking connection all the time. Or you're always in the doing mode, that when it's time to actually develop, maybe you want a family. Are you able to have the kind of compassion that will sustain a relationship? Are you serving with your business? Are you tuned into the needs of people, or you just want them to perform? And so I would work with somebody to raise that empathy, which I think all of us could use a little raising of the empathy. As a globe, that's kind of missing.
Yes, unfortunately.
So that's sort of the way Strengthsfinder would work in coaching. So you can actually focus on, for me, as I build, I needed a maximizer. And someone had said that to me a while ago. I need someone to kind of backtrack my work. And so, because when I look at it, there's no spelling errors, and I hate spelling errors. I hate them. But, if I read a blog and I don't have somebody go back over it, every single time I read it, I find another spelling error.
Wow.
And so, just a typo, which isn't great professionally. You don't want to have those in there. I want it to be excellent. So I was looking for a maximizer because I wanted somebody who loved excellence, because I really do love it too. And it's not low for me, but it's not high. And then here comes Jen Julius.
Isn't that my number one?
She's the maximizer of the maximizers.
Isn't that my top strength?
It is your top strength.
Which is probably really frustrating for some people that are close to me.
Yeah.
I guess you did. And it's funny because you can hear me in my normal day-to-day conversations. I'm like, can we just really maximize this?
Yeah.
That's part of my language. It's awesome. No, if we're going to do this, I want to maximize it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and you can transform things.
And it can also, though, so I wonder if the basement to that, though, is putting off the vibe that I'm never satisfied.
Absolutely.
Or nothing's ever good enough.
Right.
Because I'm always like, how can this be better? How can this be maximized?
So what would an affirmation
How
be
can we
for
kill
that?
38 birds with one stone? Right? Because two's not enough.
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to ricochet and jump off a building like Batman. Right? I just saw a thing the other day. Side note, always be yourself. Unless you can be Batman, then always be Batman. And I'm like, I should probably get that for my office.
That's awesome. My dad is Batman. His name is Bruce Wayne.
No way. Wow.
I know. Sorry.
That's fine. So, deep breath, refocus. So, okay. Even the cows don't want to interrupt us.
Okay. You're welcome.
And yes. So coming back to then.
So what would an affirmation be for you? What have been some powerful affirmations?
Well, something that I constantly am utilizing is just reminding myself everything's perfect. everything happens for a reason. And everything happens for a reason. It's actually one of my strongest beliefs that I live by. It really helps with, in my opinion, the healing process too, understanding that. So even if it takes 5, 10, 20 years, like in my case, to understand why something happened to me at a certain age, at a certain time, I trust and believe part of my faith is that everything happens for a reason in a more potentially divine plan. So it's not an affirmation, but it's a belief concept that I've attached to that supports me.
Right. And choosing, like some of those beliefs we choose.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely. And it's hard to choose them sometimes.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Because having those reminders are really important.
Yes. Yes.
You also have connectedness, which I have, which means it's that, again, that belief that this is all that we're talking about today. My number one is connectedness. So that's why it's such a great fit with my business.
Which makes sense why, because, I coach about core values a lot.
Yes.
And one of my core values actually just shifted, and one of them moved up and became connection for me. And so it's interesting because you and I think that it makes sense with how much time you and I spend together and work together now, that my connectedness would potentially heighten a little bit.
It would. Yeah. That's the beauty of finding other voices, finding people that exhibit, maybe some of the strengths that aren't as high for you.
So, oh my word, we maximize the connectedness.
We did.
Because those are our tops.
We did.
Oh, perfect. Let's just solve all the world's problems in the next 14 minutes. How does that sound? Done.
Exactly.
So then so we're giving all these resources tools.
Right.
So how can people start taking some action? What are some action steps for them?
Some action steps. If somebody was curious about this, like I've had some people take it and be like, okay, great. Well, and here's the truth. They've had like 13.2 million people take it. Are all of them using it? No. Did it start a conversation about what's right with people? I hope so. Because that's the goal.
Yeah.
So what's right with people? What's right with you? If you're curious about what's right with you, this might be fun.
Yeah.
I talked to a coach yesterday who's in the Bay Area, and I'm a friend of mine. And I was like, it's David Gerber. He's actually going to be on my blog this week. I'm stoked because he has number one, adaptability. And I have struggled with adaptability. I have clients that have it. Actually, I have 3 clients that have adaptability right now.
Wow.
They are able to, they can switch focus and focus on a lot of different things, but it might be distracting. But to them, it's not distracting. So they're great to have in an emergency. If somebody who has to like jump and be fully on board, whatever the next project is, they're great. They're great to have. But I just don't relate. It's low for me. I don't relate. I'm pretty focused. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't use Strengthsfinder in the way that I use it, but he looks at like purpose and personality. So some of this is personality and some of it's purpose. So how is this going to help my purpose? So how do I aim these strengths at my purpose, like in what I'm up to? Like, so if I want to set out today and I want to work in my utmost power, then I think about the way that I'm working, what jobs, what tasks, how do I work the fastest? Because I always want to go fast. And where do I feel most alive? What's juicy about the work I'm doing?
Yeah.
I start there. And if I'm not feeling that vibe, if I'm like getting overwhelmed, or I may delegate, or I may go do something that I'm great at and then come back and come back. So I actually on a daily basis think about that. Here's a thing with I have Activator, which is great at getting
people
I have that
started.
No.
Okay.
You do, because we're teamed up.
Yes.
See, you don't have to have it all.
That's right. And which brings us to thinking about like your tribe, your people. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I think that the biggest thing, so I talk strengths and weaknesses. It's just the language I typically use. And I don't take the stance, oh, you have to strengthen your weaknesses. And I say, no, you need to know what they are, and then you need to ask for support. Right. Like I'm about, you're super good at this. Let's make you even better, right? Let's maximize that and maximize, right? But then the weaknesses, it's like, okay, cool. If you know that you suck at that and you're not, or you don't want to do it or whatever, how do we minimize almost, what am I saying? The requirement of you having to do it if we can.
Right.
Mitigate that, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's what also then knowing some of these components can be really supportive too.
People are like, well, I had one client, her word of the year is collaboration. So looking at that, I think that is a really important word of the year. Like it's really, really, if you have some words of the year, this should be up there. It should be up there.
Careful, we don't shit on ourselves or other people around here.
I know, don't shit on it. But it might be in the top 5.
The cows are not having a good time with us right now.
Top 5 words of the year.
Top 5 words.
Collaboration. who do you collaborate with? If you are attending a bunch of networking meetings, how do you know who you need to talk to? How do you choose who's the one-to-one? Like, where's that going to be? Like, for you, how do you do that?
Well, I was going off on another thought.
Okay.
Can I say that?
Yeah, go. It's your show.
I do what I want. I was just thinking that, like, it's interesting because I tease a lot about how you and I always, when I talk about Kate and she's not around, I always say Kate's like one of my new best friend coaches. She's the smarter, nicer, prettier, more gentle, more perfect, friendly
Older
version of me, right? Except she looks younger. It's weird and it kind of frustrates me. So I always joke like that. People are like, oh, ha, ha, ha. But it's kind of true in some ways because our approaches, like the way that we present as humans is quite different. She has a bit of a more, I would say, gentle, friendly vibe, and I have kind of a hard edge to my personality. It's who we are, right?
Right.
Also tends to be keys in who we attract, which therefore supports our business, our friendships, whatever. However, let's say that you and I, and this is somewhat tangential, but it's going to make sense. If you and I, let's say we're business partners, it would be supportive for us. And this is where I want to address the concept of manipulation too, though, because with communication, the risk of manipulation can be high, especially if we're trying to, if we're claiming to use our story to support someone when really we're using it to make them feel bad for us. And but you see what I mean? And I'm real big on being conscientious of manipulation. So I do want to touch on that briefly. I'm taking over, but hear me out for a second. If you and I were to be business partners, it could be actually a smart business move, but also it could be very serving of other people to figure out, okay, what's this person's vibe and how can we respect them and their needs, and then pick strategically who would be the forefront in approaching them in a business opportunity. Do you see what I mean?
I do.
Because you and I carry such a different energy in how we present that, let's say this person's rather gentle and soft and a little timid. I'm good at managing my energy, but it would still make more sense for you potentially to be the front person rather than me coming in with that edge and that hardness that can be a little bit intimidating. Right. So in order to respect the potential client, we want to be strategic. That's one of mine too, right? We want to be strategic about how we're approaching the entire interaction. Yes?
Yes. The one thing that I think about as a part of my business as a business relationship consulting is helping people find strategic partners. I do masterminds and I love this stuff. And so what I think about is who is serving the same body of people, who cares about the same people that I do. That's the first thing. And for a client, if they're looking at needing a strategic, like who are they serving? Who gets what I do? Because that's how you find your tribe, right? We're both passionate about this body of people. Yes. If it's a service industry. And so given that, when you are in that space of who's serving them, and then get curious about how are they serving them? How are they working? How are they operating? Nobody needs Strengthsfinder. I'll just tell you that right now. Don't go take the test. Don't do it. Like, you really don't need it. You can do a lot of this with intuition. If you want to do it faster, tools are awesome.
We like tools.
Nobody needs it though.
Yep.
That's nothing wrong with you. And so, but this is just, you can use your intuition. This is just another way to do that. But finding who cares about the same people that you do, and finding out what are they doing that's different? Or not because, like, what's going right with them? What's going right about their work?
Yeah.
And you can find, like, in a marriage situation, in a partnership, you can learn more about people by asking them what's going well. We tend to walk into things with what's going wrong to open up vulnerability, right? So we think, like, what's wrong? What happened? What didn't? I love Brene Brown so much when she says, most people are answering these two questions in conversation. What should I be afraid of? And whose fault is it?
Wow.
And I want to be in a space for myself and supporting people around me where we're not always looking at who's to blame or what's wrong. What are they not doing? And that's how I'm going to find my partners. Well, I don't like that. I don't like how they're doing this in their business. I don't like their Facebook communications. I don't like that they don't get back to me. I don't like, well, tell me, if you're both serving the same people and there's potential, what do you like about them? What are they doing right? Go dig for that gold. Dig for it.
Yep.
And then that's a great starting place. So the mindset shift, that's what I really love about Strengths. But don't take the test. Because then you'll be addicted.
Oh, gosh.
Then you got to know all 34.
All the things. All the things. I don't. I let some of that go, although I am curious. Okay. We covered a lot. All right. Okay, so we have a few minutes left.
Okay.
Is there something that you wanted to make sure to cover before we move into summary and conclusion? Or are you feeling complete?
I feel complete.
You feel complete?
I feel complete.
Okay. Perfect. So in summary then, so we talked about the Strengthsfinder is a great resource, understanding your strengths and the balcony and the basement components of that.
Right.
Right. So
I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, I think it was. And we gave the example, like with me being a hardcore maximizer, I could put off potentially that I'm never satisfied. Nothing's ever good enough. That could be the basement, right? The balcony being like being able to see the typos quick and say, we need to fix this, this, and this. This looks funny. This, okay, perfect. Here we go.
Right.
Right. And understanding then how to potentially collaborate with others that can support some of the missing pieces, some of the gaps, right? Again, building relationships, since that's what you're so big on, is how can we be in relationship and understand that we are all in relationship with one another, period.
We are.
Makes me think of Marianne Williamson again. You know, we are all part, like, she gives the example of like, okay, so our bodies and our flesh might end here, but our spirits expand.
Yes.
And there's no point where yours stops, mine starts, whatever, right? We also talked about the 4 ways people sabotage, the need to be right, the need to control, the need to look good, the need to be comfortable. And then also, what was the other thing we talked about? Oh, the craving for love, belonging, and safety, right? So I would love some action steps for listeners is to really raise your awareness around some of these concepts. Where is this showing up for you? How is it showing up at work? Or at home, in your personal life, work life, even though we talked about not over compartmentalizing, but starting to look at and raise your awareness around these things, because awareness, in my opinion, is the first step before we can make any change, right? You have to at least be aware of what the heck's going on in the first place, right? Any last words or summaries?
Yeah, I would love if I could say one thing out.
Yes. What
into
could
the
you
world
shout?
today.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be one of my last questions.
Oh, really?
What would you shout to the world if you could only have them hear one thing? You're reading my mind.
I know. Again.
Oh my word.
Oh my word. If I could just say one thing, figure out how you sabotage yourself. Master yourself. Figure out what your emotional intelligence is, like what level you're at, where you need to improve. Spend time, invest in yourself. Invest in it. Like, not just like I'm going to read some books and whatever. Invest in it. Like, scour. Like, if this was an abyss, because it just feels scary or like a waste of time, I want you to jump off that cliff, grab someone who's been there before and has a flashlight, jump off that cliff, dive into that water and look for the gold. There is treasure here.
Yeah.
There's treasure here. There's treasure in you.
Yes.
There's treasure in there. And there is the potential for amazing, fulfilling connection while you're working.
Yeah.
Like, that is possible. Or, like, if you don't have that at your work and you're not seeing any possibility, dig for gold and really know yourself so you're not stepping into the same pattern again the next time. And learn and discover. Ask yourself these questions. Am I looking for what's not working? Am I looking for who to blame? Am I looking for, what I should be afraid of? What is my inside story about these things? Am I a complainer? Am I, what is going on? Look at your complaints as a great way, as a key sort of to kind of get into your head. But also shift and look at what's going right with you.
Yes.
What's going right with you?
Yeah.
It's a great place to start.
It's perfect.
Dig for gold. There's gold
Yes.
in there.
I like that. It's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh. Of course. I want to know though, how can people find out more information about you?
I would recommend they go to my website at katepintor.com. And Kate is spelled Kate, Pintor. And also, if you want to join us on Facebook, we have a community called Business Made Personal. We have a closed group on there. A lot of people that want to sort of be in this arena, this place where we wrestle with ourselves and run businesses. And so we want to live and serve in high integrity and with great connection, fulfilling connection. So that would be another great place to find us. My Facebook page is Join the Uprise. That's the actual URL, facebook.com, Join the Uprise. And we have some great events coming up. I would love to connect with you.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always a pleasure to be in your presence. And yeah, okay. All right. Oh, my word. One more, oh my word.
Oh my word.
Oh my word. Okay. And thank you for listening to Information and Inspiration with Jen Julius. For more information about me and to check out some of my previously recorded shows, you can go to jenjulius.com or like me on Facebook at facebook.com/JenJuliusCoaching. Thank you so much for listening today. We hope you learned something fabulous, and we'd love to hear from you on what you did learn.